That offense never got going yesterday. He never looked comfortable. He didn't look anything like he did in the preseason. Let me just tell you, being a starting quarterback in the NFL, Mike Macdonald and a Baltimore Ravens-ish type of scheme, right? That's your first lesson. Like, whoa, they're doing a lot of different crazy crap on the defensive side of the ball, let alone you go to the arguably the hardest place to play in an outdoor stadium at all in football.
Week 1 is in the books, and it is officially overreaction season. After a preseason that included mostly highs, Bo Nix's debut was a crashing back-to-earth scenario that is all too familiar for Denver Broncos fans. The quarterback curse that has plagued them ever since the departure of Peyton Manning has been brutal, exposing them to the expensive and uncomfortable quarterback carousel that has seen 11 starters come and go. That's 8 years of quarterback pain, which tells you all you need to know about the pressure on Bo Nix's shoulders. After a rough week 1, can he get things back on track, or will he become the latest victim of the Denver Broncos quarterback curse? For NFL teams, you either have a good starting quarterback, or you're looking for one. In the 8 seasons since Peyton Manning hung up his boots, the Broncos have sent out the following names to start at quarterback: Brock Osweiler, Paxton Lynch, Trevor Siemian, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, Drew Lock, Brandon Allen, Jeff Driscoll, Brett Rippon, Teddy Bridgewater, and Russell Wilson. For context, in that same time frame, the Dallas Cowboys have had just one: Dak Prescott. The arrival of Russell Wilson in 2022 was meant to solve the problem once and for all, only for his play and contract to set the team back in a completely different kind of way. An early departure for Russ saddled the team with $53 million of dead money in 2024 and another $32 million to look forward to in 2025. So that man was Bo Nix, who is officially the most experienced college quarterback in NFL history. In fact, Nix stormed past the previous record of 53 held by Colt McCoy and Kellen Moore, going on to appear in 61 games in total. Experience puts you in very good stead in the NFL, which is probably one of the things that made Nix so appealing to Sean Payton. Just look at what it did for Brock Purdy. Unfortunately, we didn't see the benefit of that experience in Nix's first game as a pro, which got pretty hairy at times. Almost every pass was short of the line to gain, and any passes that ventured further downfield felt like a disaster waiting to happen. His 2 interceptions came on poor decisions with poor execution. They were perfectly summed up by commentator Adam Archuleta, who could be heardly inaccurate downfield, either firing passes out of the reach of his receivers or hitting them, but only when they were completely strapped by Seahawk defenders. It honestly felt like every deep pass near a player was as likely to be a Seahawk interception as it was a Broncos first down, with several heading in the direction of double or triple coverage. To put it simply, his 12 attempts at passing further than 15 yards downfield resulted in 2 completions for 42 yards, 8 incompletions, and 2 interceptions. Ouch. He also had several third down passes that were completed well short of the sticks, which is reflected in his average yards per completion of 3.3 and an average depth of target of just 6. We knew that this was going to be the case with Nix, but for it to materialize in such a scrambled and unconvincing package in week 1 is concerning. After all, Nix led the NCAA with 45 touchdowns in 2023 whilst throwing just 3 interceptions. This game was uncharacteristic for him in many ways. Now, of course, there aren't many defensive coaches in college who are as skilled as Mike Macdonald, so now is probably a good time to address the many elements that were stacked against Nix in this game. As I just mentioned, the new Seattle Seahawks head coach Mike Macdonald is one of the best defensive minds in the game. He is fresh off a stint in Baltimore where he produced a swarming, suffocating defense that comfortably gave up the fewest points in 2023. Add in the fact that Seattle have 2 stars set for a breakout in Devin Weatherspoon and Reek Woolen in the secondary, and some nasty playmakers on the defensive line, and you get a pretty nightmare debut scenario for Nix. It also didn't help that he had to face them down in their own stadium, which is renowned for being one of the most intimidating and loud stadiums to play at. Brock Purdy was an MVP candidate until he came across Macdonald's Baltimore defense last year, completing just 50% of his passes for 255 yards, no touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. I think we can forgive Nix for struggling against that same defensive scheme, albeit with different players, in his first ever taste of NFL action. You also have to factor in the distinct lack of playmakers at his disposal. Whilst Nix's setup might not be as bad as the one that Bryce Young faced in Carolina last year, it isn't exactly the most threatening. His receivers struggled to get open and dropped catches which deprived him of a couple more completions. Courtland Sutton is a solid guy on the outside, and Josh Reynolds proved his worth by coming up with a couple of tough catches. But it does feel like the receiving group is missing that explosive playmaker who can make something happen out of nothing. Rookie Devon Vele was hyper efficient on his debut, collecting all of his 8 receptions, but just 39 yards to show for it sums up the overall approach and success of the offense. Nix also received no help from his running backs, with both Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams posting under 3 yards per carry from their 10 and 8 totes respectively. The run game was actually somewhere that Nix did excel, albeit with most of his production coming in the fourth quarter. Still, his 35 yards led the team and also secured him his first touchdown in the NFL. With all of that in mind, it would be harsh not to admit that Nix did have it stacked against him. Facing down a genius defensive coordinator with a subpar assortment of weapons in your first ever taste of NFL action isn't ideal. But even so, Broncos fans have got to feel underwhelmed with the box score. For Nix to have attempted 42 passes and walked away with just 138 yards is borderline impressive for all the wrong reasons. His quarterback rating of 30 is certainly not impressive, however, and fans will be hoping that this is not the first sign of yet another disappointment in the Broncos quarterback room. For fans in Denver, the sense of deja vu has got to be pretty scary. For the sake of anyone watching who is not a Broncos fan and therefore suffering from having this awful quarterback history etched into your brains, let's take a quick refresher. Having just won the Super Bowl in the 2015 season, Trevor Siemian took the keys from Hall of Famer Peyton Manning in 2016, completing 59% of his passes for 3,401 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. The team managed to get to 9 wins in his first season at the helm, but declined to just 5 in 2017, which led to him being replaced by Brock Osweiler and then Paxton Lynch, who both failed to offer any sense of hope. This encouraged the Broncos to make the bold move of signing Case Keenum, a mostly career backup who had just managed to produce a strong year when given a shot in Minnesota. A 3,547-yard, 22 touchdown, and 7 interception season earned him the starting role in Denver, but a 6-10 season in which he threw almost as many interceptions as touchdowns ruled him out as the savior as well. Next up was Joe Flacco in 2019, who arrived via trade from the Baltimore Ravens. He managed to throw for 1,822 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions before an injury took him out of the lineup in Week 8. Some sorry performances from Brandon Allen did little to energize the fans in what was an already lost season, so in came Drew Lock, that year's second-round pick at quarterback. In a rare turn of events, Locke actually strung some wins together, posting a 4-1 record to close out the season, in which he collected 1,020 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Could this be the savior? Nope. Drew Lock's reign as the future of the franchise started and ended in 2020, when he led the team to a 5-11 record whilst throwing 12 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. Jeff Driscoll and Brett Rypien also had a go in what was a bizarre, COVID-affected season. By now, fans were understandably getting restless, so the team started inquiring about some big names to come in and solve the problems once and for all. Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson appeared to be in the running, only for Teddy Bridgewater to be the chosen champ, arriving via trade. Bridgewater was a significant upgrade over what had come before him, passing for 3,052 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, en route to a 7-win season. Good things don't last for too long in Denver though, as his season was cut short due to concussions in Week 15. Locke came in to pilot the Broncos through the last 3 games, losing all 3. With the Broncos now in desperation mode, they decided to throw the kitchen sink and whatever else they could find at the situation. They sent an almighty haul of draft picks, including first-rounders, to the Seahawks in exchange for the services of Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited himself. He was, by a long way, the biggest investment the team had made in the quarterback position since signing Peyton Manning, and was an all-in attempt at putting an end to the quarterback carousel madness. It was a bold move by the Broncos front office, and they succeeded, in the sense that Wilson became the first quarterback to hold on to the starting job for more than 1 season. But just about nobody was happy about it, apart from Seattle fans. When Sean Payton took over from Nathaniel Hackett in 2023, even he wasn't happy about Russ's position as starter, so he made sure to get rid of him as quickly as possible after the season had started, taking on $85 million of dead cap space in doing so. And that's where we end up today, with Bo Nix hoping to fill the void left by Wilson, with the unenviable task of giving a suffering fan base something that they haven't had since 2015, a quarterback. Whilst the beginning of his career in Denver has got off to a rough start, it is important to remember that this guy was a clear target for Sean Payton. The Drew Brees comparisons were popular during the pre-draft process, and not exactly misplaced, given Nix's quick and accurate play style. He's a fantastic match for Payton, quickly pulling the trigger on what his head coach draws up for him, whilst also adding the ability to make plays with his legs and throw on the move. His 4,508 passing yards in his final year at college were second to only Michael Penix Jr., and his 45 touchdowns led the nation. He also threw just 3 interceptions during that season, which emphasizes how out of character his rookie performance was against Seattle. With 61 games worth of experience under his belt, Nix should be able to adjust to life in the NFL quicker than his fellow 2024 draft class. But matchups against Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, the New York Jets, and the Las Vegas Raiders mean things aren't going to get easier in a hurry. Ultimately, it is going to be hard for Nix to light up the stage and start taking over games like he did in college. Is he a bust after 1 week? Of course, moving forward and refining what worked well for him at college. And that's where Sean Payton needs to step up as well. Results shouldn't be of concern to this Broncos team. The ultimate priority needs to be helping Bo Nix find his feet, cut out the mistakes, and start showing signs of improvement. Then, and only then, might his quarterback curse be ended. What do you think the 2024 season holds for Bo Nix? Let us know in the comments.